All right. We are live. All right. Let me make sure that I can be heard. This is Moon. I pray everybody's doing well. Welcome back to the channel. I got a little recovering, y'all. I'm recovering. I wasn't doing so well. I always say I pray everybody's doing well, but I wasn't so well this week. So I'm just recovering and I got a little downtime more than usual. So I said, let me hop on this thing once again, right? And I came across this video and I wanted to speak to it. Now I can't get too hype as I usually do because, but I wanted to kind of speak to it. So welcome to those who just joined us. Women don't submit anymore. Haven't had one of these conversations in a minute. But some of these TikTok videos, it stuff so much information. Everything sounds so good. And then you're like, yeah, that's true. That brother, that sister's spitting. And then you're like, wait a minute. So we're going to just play this video. And then we're going to go over to see whether or not what is being said actually makes sense. And let me make sure that I can be heard. Shout out to those who just joined us. Let me know if I can be heard, and then we go from there. Yep, I can be heard. All right. So if my voice is kind of groggy, I'm just recovering. You don't know it already. All right. So let me play the video. Oh, my apologies. It's taking me a second. I thought the video was up on this side. One second. Hold on, let me go make sure that is. My throat was all jacked up. Let me close everything else so I can see where the video is. All right, let me go back over here now. All right, here it is. Okay. All right. You should be able to see the video. All right, you should be able to see the video now. And now I'm going to play it. And then I want us to listen to it straight through. And then we're going to come back and see, is it making sense? Are they talking that talk? Or what is it?
Women don't submit anymore. No, women don't submit to you. Women are natural to submission. I don't care how strong and independent she is. So here's the disconnect. Are you looking for forced submission?
Oh boy. The prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership. You said it is in a woman's nature to submit. If that's the case, it should not matter what a man is doing. What you're referring to is femininity upon demand. We get nowhere this way. If we look at it from the other side of the coin, what you are saying is that it is okay for a man to remain outside of his masculine until he finds a woman that is in her feminine. Absolutely not. Keep hearing this shit from women. Masculinity and femininity are not dependent upon one another. It is your job to be feminine and submissive. It is my job to be disciplinarian and defender. You're correct. Our women are not their grandparents anymore. More specifically, they are not their grandmothers. Our grandmothers showed up in their feminine and they remain there. Our women nowadays label that type of woman abused. They assert that our grandmothers are weak and our grandfathers took advantage of our grandmothers because they equate submission damn near to chattel slavery. To submit is to yield to authority. If your man is not the authority in your household, it is not because he is not trying to be, it's because you are not allowing him to be so. If a woman challenges a man's authority, there is no low-level threat of violence that exists between man and woman like there is between men, so there is no way to settle dispute. This leaves men with but a few options, either become abusive and or simply leave. Granted, his correction should be righteous, but he shouldn't even have to go as far as raising his voice. You said a lot of women come from a split home with a double Dutch dad, and even more of them come from a home with a single mom that thinks they're the man. They have never even seen their own mother submit to a man because she is in her masculine. The Most High God said it himself, it is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and an angry woman. The conversation we're not having is why these men are leaving. And you will for not 1 second get me to believe that by default, black men are deadbeat dads that leave their women. These men are leaving their women because of lack of submission from their women and the proclivity for them to be verbally and emotionally abused. Calling men boys and students will not get us to step up to the plate. You are attacking the very little bit of masculinity we still have left. All you get is Lil Nas X after this. Women are to be men's suggestive counsel in the decision-making process, not his argumentative opposition. You asked how a woman can feel safe in a chaotic environment. The first thing she needs to do is add peace to that environment. When women are calm, shit quails. When women are irate, environments become contentious. Men display poor leadership skills in the household for the same reason that teachers display poor leadership skills in the classroom. We are unable to exercise discipline outside of verbal, and as we all know, there is no authority to be had against an argumentative woman. Men, if a woman does not come to you in submission, do not abuse her. Leave her.
All right. That was interesting. Hold on 1 second. That was a lot, and that was interesting. And the moving of the camera was just as confusing as a lot that was being said. So for those who just joined us, we're going to go back over that real quick. Okay. Let me make sure I can be heard. We're going to go back over that real quick. Yeah, I don't know, Chris. Chris, why going? Yeah, there's a lot of thirstiness going on in that department. So we're gonna hey John, what's going on? I can't be to do the hype thing. Like I said, I'm just recovering this week, so I had a little minute to come pop on. But the whole moving in the front of the back of the camera, that's confusing in and of itself. I guess that's to like, I don't know. I don't know what that's to do. But for critical thinking, for just to keep my mind sharp, you know what I mean? For critical thinking, sometimes you could get sucked into business and but you got to keep your mind critically sharp. You know what I mean? So let's go back and listen to what he said, because I like to let people talk and then make sure, because once we build something, right, we build an argument. That's what lawyers do. Yeah, you build a premise. Like a house or anything, everything that you put on top of that is going to be based on the foundation that you build. So if the very foundation is off, then everything is going to be crooked. The measurements on the windows could be right, on the walls could be right, but if the foundation is crooked, if you didn't set a solid foundation, everything is going to be off kilter. Okay, so he is supposed to be responding to a woman that is speaking, and now he is laying it down, right? But I want to hear if some of the premises, not only does this man have but others as well in many spaces, whether or not the premise in and of itself is off, yeah? Or whether it's on point. And then we'll read some of these comments. Why not? Right? So I'm going to play it again. Let me see if is it still on? Yeah, it's still on. Screen is still sharing. So let's go back over there and play it again, shall we?
Anymore. No, women don't submit to you. Women are natural to submission. I don't care how strong and independent she is. So here's the disconnect. Are you looking for forced submission?
Oh boy. The prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership.
Okay, pause. He says the prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership. Anybody in the chat? We see some brothers in the chat. Would you agree with that? Because that's his first point. Point by point. Is he on point? That first point that he made, that the prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership. For the brothers in the chat, is that a correct point? I'll say it again. I'll write it, because sometimes we talk so fast. We fast talking. The prerequisite, right? Because you go to school, the prerequisite to English 102 is English 101. The prerequisite to entering into your doctoral program is to have taken a master's program, right? Everything has a prerequisite depending on what it is that you're doing, right? So the prerequisite to second grade, unless you get skipped, is first grade, right? He's saying that the prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership. How many people agree with that? Not what he means, John, what he said. What he said, John, not what he means, what he said. Because first this is where we get lost in translation. What with the statement that he said, with that specific statement, do you agree with it? See, this is why we have problems in communication, because what somebody meant versus what they said, and not acknowledging what they said first, and then we want to explain what we meant. This is where all the confusion comes in. So John is saying he means that women must be feminine before, after, and during a masculine man. No, that's not what he said. Is that it is not a prerequisite. Let's play it again. See, we probably won't get past breaking down the first part of this. I got a little time today, although my stomach still feels a little queasy, but I got a little time today because why we have a hard time just acknowledging what's being said. Okay, so let's go back to what he said. What did the man say? What did the man say? Let's go back what the man said, and then we see whether, because right now he's building a premise. Yeah, he's building a premise. So he's saying it's not a prerequisite for him to be a leader for you to submit. I would venture to say, why do I cannot keep finding this thing? It's not a prerequisite for me to have a business for you to submit an application. Who's gonna come submit an application to a business that doesn't exist, to a position that's not open? It's a prerequisite for you to have a place of employment to employ people. Certain things are prerequisites in order for you to submit, to put yourself under something. It has to be something there. I'm just saying, that's just my thought. Let me just go back a little bit.
Oh boy. The prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership. You said
okay, so right there could be one of the first points of contention, right? But John says yes, it's true. Which part, John? Be clear to be clear if you can. Now he's speaking the prerequisite. Let me write it out. The prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership. I find that a problematic statement. Let's stay on point. I don't have all the energy today to do all of the extra stuff. Welcome to those who just joined us. Right now, we're just doing a little critical thinking, and we're going to try to stay on topic. The topic is this video and what's being said, because really what it is an exercise in communication and reading comprehension or listening comprehension. Not about, we're listening to what he is saying, and we're not just throwing random words and theories at the wall. We're listening to what he's saying and seeing how or if he's building his premise and his thought processes on a solid foundation, or if there's some faulty reasoning that's leading us to bad places in communication. This is okay. So John is saying that John is saying he agrees. So John is saying he doesn't need to lead for her to submit. So basically, there's no standard for her submission. She just submits with or without leadership, right? Let's continue.
it is in a woman's nature to submit. If that's the case, it should not matter what a man is doing. What you're referring to is femininity upon demand. We get nowhere this way. If we look at it from the other side of the coin, what you are saying is that it is okay for man to remain outside femininity upon demand. We get woman's nature to submit. If that's the case, it should. Oh boy. The prerequisite to female submission is not male leadership. You said it is in a woman's nature to submit. If that's the case, it should not matter what a man is doing. What you're referring.
And then he goes on her premise that it's in the woman's nature to submit. How many people agree with that statement? That's now the premise that he's using from her argument, which we didn't hear her whole argument. And that premise is it is within woman's nature to submit. So how many people agree with that? So this is the sister's point, right? This is him countering or using her point as if this is so, then that. If this, then that, right? So how many people agree or disagree that it is within, sometimes we need to slow down, a woman's nature to submit? How many people agree or disagree? Agree or disagree? Is it within a woman's nature to submit? Agree or disagree? He spoke to this point, okay? How many people agree or disagree? John says, D says leadership, respect is due to a dog. Not sure. D, more specific to what was shared if you can. Women that are feminine have standards for men they submit to. They just ignore the men that are weak. So John is saying he agrees, and correct me if I'm wrong, John. You agree, but there is a prerequisite then, because he just said there is no prerequisite. But based on what you're saying, then there is a prerequisite. Because if she has a standard, then that's a prerequisite. If somebody has a standard, then that's a prerequisite. Something has to become some before you submit to something or before you agree, right? Nobody beat women into submission, so it was natural. Not sure if I'm following, but you can feel free to clarify. But we're gonna continue. So we have a point and a counterpoint. So he's responding. So he's going off of a premise that the woman set forward, but he's countering it, saying he doesn't agree because, and I don't want to go ahead of him here. So let's let him keep talking.
To his femininity upon demand, we get nowhere this way. If we look at it from the other side of the coin, what you are saying is that it is okay for man to remain outside of his masculine until he finds a woman that is in her feminine. Absolutely not.
So he's not in agreement with that. Her femininity should be contingent upon the behavior of the male, and then he put them both on the scale to make the woman and the man equivalent in the sense of when a certain characteristic is activated. So he doesn't agree with femininity on demand. He thinks that she should always be in this mode with or without the prompting of a male. Yeah. So brother point number two. Brother point number two. I don't even want to let me go back and get brother point number two. How many people agree with brother point number two? I'm gonna just call him. Y'all just work with me today.
And to remain outside of his masculine until he finds a woman that is in her feminine. What a man is doing. What you're referring to is femininity upon demand. We get nowhere this way. If we look at it from the other side of the coin, what you are saying is that it is okay for man to remain outside of his masculine until he finds a woman that is in her feminine. Absolutely not. Keep hearing this shit from women. Masculinity and femininity are not dependent upon one another.
So basically, brother point number two is that masculinity and femininity are not dependent upon one another. How many people believe that's true? How could that be true? How could that be true? How could they not be dependent on one another? Father, help me. I thought I had a lot of energy, but I don't. Y'all gonna have to help me. They are not dependent on one another. Hear what he said. He said masculinity and femininity are not interdependent. They're not dependent upon the other. Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting thought. There's many times in antiquity or even in recent times where men will dare be being men, and when they see women, or even in the animal kingdom, when they see the feminine counterpart come around, it activates something in the masculine. So how can they not be dependent or interdependent upon one another when one plays off the other? I totally disagree. Women need the correct environment. Thank you, India, for sharing your thoughts. Welcome to the conversation, India. A masculine woman will still reject weak men, but they will emasculate them in the process, like cuss him out and try to publicly humiliate them. So based on what you are saying, remember, I'm trying to write down this man's points, because again, when we have these type of things and we have fast talkers, it sounds like they spitting facts, but if it's built on a faulty premise, yeah, then not so much, right? And so that's his point right there. It sounds like this argument is not coming from African-centered perspective, which becomes problematic. I mean, yeah, Chris. I mean, it's basically where we are right now. You know what I mean? It's there's a lot of places that people say this is where we're coming from. This is not where we're coming from. But the reality is, it is where we are, and is where we are so much that it's having an adverse effect on. There was another video I wanted to touch on, but like I said, that one slipped through the cracks. I want to get it back. It's having an adverse effect on the future, how people are relating to family, relationships, and the very future, right? You talk about generational wealth, but when the very core of tomorrow is in question because of the foundation. You're assuming a feminine. Again, if John, if you have a question about when somebody said, at them and then ask them instead of asserting that they're assuming. That's why communication is effective if we use it, right? If you're assuming what they're assuming, then you ask them, are you saying this? So you just clarify. Walks through the door even if it's bad. You're assuming that being feminine means you will accept what walks through the door even if it's bad. Not sure who you're talking to, John, but if you have a question or if you want to clarify, you could ask. Masculinity, femininity cannot exist without one another. Thank you. They're interdependent, India. That was my point for. So I found a few things that he would have to clarify because those are faulty premises. They are not independent of one another. But let me continue. Hold on 1 second.
It is your job to be feminine and submissive. It is my job to be disciplinarian and defender. You're correct.
He said it is your job, the woman, to be feminine and submissive, and it is his job to be.
And femininity are not dependent upon one another. It is your job to be feminine and submissive. It is my job to be disciplinarian and defender.
It is his job to be feminine and wait. Hold on. My daughter just busted in here and threw me all off. Hold on a second. Sorry. Let me plug this back in. So yeah, he's saying it is your job. It is. Let me go back again. What did the man say?
Shit from women. Masculinity and femininity are not dependent upon one another. It is your job to be feminine and submissive. It is my job to be disciplinarian and defender.
It is the woman's job to be feminine and submissive, and his job to be disciplinarian and protector. But pause, okay? He is simplifying the job of the masculine and feminine to two things, right? So how many people agree with that? That the only job of the woman is to be feminine and submissive. Is that the woman's only job? Is that brother point? What brother point are we on right now? This is brother point number what? Y'all help me out. This is brother point number what, 3? He's claiming that the woman's job is to be feminine and submissive. I'm gonna come read your comments. And the man's job, and brother point number 4. I'm just trying to keep track of all the stuff that's being said. Is to be masculine and defender. Y'all help me out. What did brother point number 4 say? I'm not all the way. Let me go back.
Are not dependent upon one another. It is your job to be feminine and submissive. It is my job to be disciplinarian and defender.
Disciplinarian and defender. What happened to provider? And defender. What are you defending? You defend something you haven't provided? I'm confused. He just really boiled that down. Defender. Okay, yeah, we got that. Let me see what's going on in the comments, and then we'll reconvene here. John, okay, John, you're talking to me. You're assuming that feminine women will just date or sleep with a loser just because he. I didn't assume anything, John. That's what I'm saying. Key communication is asking the person if you're unclear. I didn't assume anything. That's a societal misconception that female sisters are weak, gullible, and desperate. I didn't say none of the above. All I'm doing is listening to what someone else is saying and having a conversation as to whether we agree or disagree. John, see, this is why sometimes people have issues in communication because we're not actively listening. We're projecting our already predisposed thought processes on the individual, and we're assuming what they're thinking instead of asking for clarity. I didn't say any of what you said, so I'm sorry to let you know that I think you're assuming at this point. I didn't say any of that. I'm just listening to what he's saying and having a conversation based on that. India said, but submissive to what? Unless you came into the world already mated, that this makes no sense. Let's see. Disciplinarian and defender. Yeah, thank you, Chris. So how many people agree with that? That the woman's job is to be feminine and submissive, and the man's job is to be disciplinarian and defender. How many people agree with that? How many people agree with that? Yeah, because at this point, there's a number of things that he said that may sound like, oh yeah, but when you look into them, you know, yeah. So the man's men, and so if they're not interconnected, how does one do their job? If it's like to say, if you don't provide in antiquity, if you didn't provide the meal or the raw materials, how then does she prepare the food? So basically you're saying prepare even though I haven't provided. That creates imbalance. That's what we're experiencing in today's space and time.
You're correct. Our women are not their grandparents anymore. More specifically, they are not their grandmothers. Our grandmothers showed up in their feminine and they remain defender. You're correct. Our women are not their grandparents anymore. More specifically, they are not their grandmothers. Our grandmothers showed up in their feminine and they remain there.
That is a sweeping general statement. I'll replay that. This is another. I know I did a logical fallacies on this channel before. If we look at why the communication, it's not like who's right, who's wrong, who's fighting, but why we don't reach anywhere is the way we talk. It's the way we exchange. This is a sweeping generalization, a faulty generalization. So let's go back and listen to what he just said again.
To be disciplinarian and defender. You're correct. Our women are not their grandparents anymore. More specifically, they are not their grandmothers. Our grandmothers showed up in their feminine and they remain there. Our women nowadays label that type of woman abused. They assert that our grandmothers are weak and our grandfathers took advantage of our grandmothers because they equate submission damn near to chattel slavery. To submit is...
He says that the grandmothers showed up in their feminine and they remain there. How far back are you going, sir? Let me write that down. His point again.
That type of woman abused. They assert that our grandmothers are weak and our You're correct. Our women are not their grandparents anymore. More specifically, they are not their grandmothers. Our grandmothers showed up in their feminine and they remain there. Our women nowadays label that.
The grandmothers showed up in their feminine and remain there. This is bro point like number. That would mean that everyone's grandmother, their occupation, that everyone's grandmother was not a widow. They were not a single mother. They did not work outside the home. They were able to rest in their femininity and stay there. Is that a fact? Is that a fact? For people that's on the line right now, is that the case with your particular grandmothers and your great grandmothers? Did they have the luxury to not move out of their femininity because they had everything provided for them and they were able to rest in their femininity? This is one thing we do, and I spoke about this in times past, is that we romanticize the past. Hold on, I'm trying to write what he wrote. And stayed there. And then when we challenge it, it's like, oh, why are you doing this? Because we are painting a picture for people in today's space and time that is not historically accurate, right? When you look at the history of the what do you call it, Statue of Liberty, and then you learn the history that it actually had chains on it, and if you look at the foot, you could still see, and it was a gift from France to the United States, but they tried to change it. When you learn the true history, you're like, wow, I can't unsee it. But you have people who would like have you to believe that it is what it isn't, right? And so this is kind of what and then we accuse people of whitewashing history, but then we do the same thing. To what end? John said he didn't say anything wrong. We've already debunked that our grandmothers had little choice in timers. Yeah, that's correct, India. So again, it's all about perspective, yeah? Yeah, this is that's what I say, Chris. Chris says there's a lot of assumptions by the narrator. This is what I'm saying. The narrator is going all the way in to Assumptionville, you know what I mean? Sweeping generalizations that cause for, when it's a monologue, when you're the only one talking, it sounds real good. John says, just because it's a sweeping generalization doesn't mean it's not true. You keep saying something is a generalization as if he's saying it's not. I'm saying to you, John, that what he's saying, because he's making sweeping generalizations to try to prove his point, it's not true. If he was being specific about what he was saying, because he's speaking to a whole demographic of people, he's not just saying, oh, this specific over here, he's blanketing it. And when we talk about blanketing something, when it relates to, if they say, oh, all black people smoked crack and all black people, then you say, wait a minute, that's not true. But when it's advantageous to us, we want sweeping generalization. So what I'm saying concerning his generalization is that it's not true. D, I've allowed you to come through. You are moving kind of reckless. We respectful over here. If you can't be respectful, then you're gonna have to roll. I haven't seen you before. I've given you an opportunity to just kind of, you know what I mean, come through, but you're moving kind of reckless right now. And as I said, I'm just recovering, so I'm not feeling 100% right now, and I'm not going in. So if you can't be respectful, then you're gonna have to move on to somewhere else where you feel you could just cut up. Okay, so that's my one peace offering to you before we're gonna have to mosey on down. You know what I mean? So this is what we want to be able to do. And I'm just going to use this D. Callow, whoever this person is, as an example. People are having a discussion respectfully, right? When it doesn't go the direction that they want it to go, they start resulting to calling people names, labeling people, trying to ostracize people on their own spot, right? They try to do all of that stuff because they're looking to prove a point that they're not even making, right? And this is part of the reason why we have issues as a quote collective moving forward for foolishness like this. Okay? Just because someone is not wholly in agreement with you doesn't mean the first thing that you need to do is to try to attack them. For what? Emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, learning how to communicate your position, asking the right questions. All of these things are helpful to moving the needle forward, the conversation forward. So again, I don't know who you are, but at this point, which I usually don't do, we're just going to put you in timeout. You know what I mean? We're going to put you in timeout. So let's continue. As this is, John says, it's true our grandparents stayed married till the day they died. That's not true. That's not true. Some did and some didn't. This dysfunctional family stuff is 60 years old. That's not true. Some did and some didn't. Yeah, block is a feature, India. We just had the time to time them out. So again, what we and we talked about grandmother's secrets on here. Remember that, John? What sometimes the truth is too uncomfortable, so we rather stay connected to the lie. And I understand that. It's part of the process. But let's keep listening. I think I'm running out of steam. I'm getting tired. I gotta drink my tea.
Type of woman abused. They assert that our grandmothers are weak and our grandfathers took advantage of our grandmothers because they equate submission damn near to chattel slavery. To submit is to yield to authority. If your man is not the authority in your household, it is not because he is not trying to be, it's because you are not allowing him to be so. If a woman...
So to submit is to yield to authority, but if he's not the authority, it's your fault because you're not allowing him to be. That's what he just said. Let me rewind it again.
Our grandmothers are weak and our grandfathers took advantage of our grandmothers because they equate submission damn near to chattel slavery. To submit is to yield to authority. If your man is not the authority in your household, it is not because he is not trying to be, it's because you are not allowing him to be so. If a woman challenges a man's authority, there is no low-level threat of violence that exists between man and woman like there is between men, so there is no way to settle dispute. This leaves men with but a few options.
That low-level threat of violence is Kevin Samuels lingo. That low-level threat of violence is Kevin Samuels lingo. We have to realize that certain thought processes coming from certain places, but they just may repackage it different ways. India said that's cap. Leaders lead. They don't require permission. Hey, peace, Joel. Long time. How you doing? Long time, Joel. How you doing? For those who just joined the conversation, I said on the top of the hour, I'm just recovering. I've been down all week. So if I sound a little lethargic or groggy, that's what's going on. I've been recovering all week. So I had a little time to peep around on social media. So welcome to the conversation. And yeah, let's finish listening to this. I like the build. It's a good conversation, a good exchange. We'll see what John's saying now. By and large, they go to the generalizations. We know that's how it was. Look up divorce stats from before the sexual revolution. Yeah, I'm feeling better. It took like 5 days. Yesterday was the first day I went outside. It was the first day I went outside. I went outside this morning. And so I'm feeling a little better. I got about 10 more minutes in me. Then I'm going to go look for something to eat. But let's finish this video up.
Either become abusive and or simply leave. Granted, his correction should be righteous, but he shouldn't even have to go as far as raising his voice. You said a lot of women come from a split home with a double Dutch dad, and even more of them come from a home with a single mom that thinks they're the man. They have never even seen their own mother submit to a man because she is in her masculine. The Most High God said it himself.
Wait.
Correction should be righteous, but he shouldn't even have to go as far as raising his voice. You said a lot of women come from a split home with a double Dutch dad, and even more of them come from a home with a single mom that thinks they're the man. They have never even seen their own mother submit to a man because she is in her masculine. The Most High God said it himself.
Wait, so he's responding to her in that part. So I didn't have the original thing that she said. So let me go back a little bit. So he jumps, and someone did this the other day, and I commented on a YouTuber's thing. They showed a video. We showed that video last year sometime, I think, where they were interviewing some women from the 80s, some single teenage mothers from the 80s. And they asked them, about the father of the children. I think you guys remember that one. And whether or not they thought they needed fathers. And their response was they don't think so because they didn't have any. And my question is, if what John is saying and many other people are saying is that the grandmothers married and they stayed married, right? And they didn't divorce, then where along the line did the grandmothers who stayed married and never divorced produce daughters and sons who didn't marry and only populated these children with no household? What part was that? And if we're gonna blame it solely on the government and this and that, then I think we're missing the mark. I mean, but yeah. So let me go ahead back to this conversation here.
Self, it is better to dwell in the should be righteous, but he shouldn't even have to go as far as raising his voice. You said a lot of women come from a split home with a double Dutch dad, and even more of them come from a home with a single mom that thinks they're the man. They have never even seen their own mother submit to a man because she is in her masculine. The Most High God said it himself, it is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and an angry woman. The conversation we're not having is why these men are leaving. And you will for not 1 second get me to believe that by default, black men are deadbeat dads that leave.
Wait, he's jumping. Concerning this part right here.
Shouldn't even have to go as far as raising his voice. You said a lot of women come from a split home with a double Dutch dad, and even more of them come from a home with a single mom that thinks they're the man. They have never even seen their own mother submit to a man because she is in her masculine. The Most High.
If or when something happens, some type of injury, somebody gets hurt, or there's a deficit, what do you do automatically? What does the body do automatically? It begins to lean on something else within the body to compensate for the thing that is missing. Am I bugging or no? So the humanity has a wild ability to adapt, right? Humanity has a wild ability to adapt. If something is missing, they adapt. So for some weird reason in this man-woman conversation, when there's something missing, when the other component is missing, and oftentimes it's the male in this case is missing, then people begin to feel indifferent and resentful that the feminine had to adapt in order to preserve. If your left hand is not working, you begin to overuse your right so that you can still maintain and be preserved. So a lot of this adaptation where she had to take on all of these roles is an effort to preserve herself and her family. Am I tripping? Am I bugging or no? So people take it as an affront, but if this adaptation wasn't there, then how would people survive? And do you continue to do like that when no, but to act as if this is not a mechanism, not only in humanity, but in creation, the ability to adapt is the ability to survive. I'm just saying, are women supposed to submit to the man or his ideals and principles? Does a man submit to principles greater than himself? Questions, good questions, Chris. Let's put those questions on the screen. John says, the grandfather you spoke about that were getting abused mother had a family on the other side of town that didn't start until the 60s. Huh? John, we're not doing that today. I don't got all that. And John, we don't have no energy to them. I'm not lying. Before the baby boomers generation were the ones that did everything bad. You mentioned the silent generation and shotgun weddings and father protection, and that's why they were happy. I can't follow the whole thought, John. You'll have to give me a little more on that. That's a good point. There's a missing link. If our grandparents had traditional high functioning relationship to be examples to their offspring. Right, there's a missing link. The baby boomers, she said, only cared about themselves. That's why they created the single mom epidemic. Listen, let's pause right here. Y'all know I went back to do some classes. As you look at what was going on in America, let's just use America historically, each generation had their own reality to deal with. What we're assuming is that we know what it was like to be present in that particular generation, and we know what it's like, why they made the choices that they made. Come on. When you look at the generation, like I was studying when World War I came out, between 1914 and 1918. After that was what the generation that brought in the Roaring 20s. These people just went through all kind. They got wild, they got crazy, they got loose. Why? Because of what they just came through. That created a different generation. After that, the 1920s those parents or those teenagers who later became parents were very different when they went through the Great Depression, right? So each time, each decade in history, especially in the 1900s, something catastrophic was happening, either great wealth and affluence or great poverty, or and this determined how they thought and looked at family and expansion and morals and religion and everything else. So I don't think it's just one singular thing that changed the way people related to one another. I think it was a combination of advertising and products and advancement and travel, and I don't have to do this anymore. There's some people who stuck around because they had no other option, but now when they had options, they chose to do something else. That's just some of my thoughts on that. India's saying, who were the boomers' parents? What examples did they set? That's my point. If you're looking at the different generations, they were going through something, each one of them. There was a lot of missing fathers during the wars, during world. They took a lot of women's husbands away. There was a lot of single parenting created by the wars that was happening in America. It wasn't just there was a lot of single parenters just by the Great Migration from the South to the North. We talked about this before, but let me just finish playing.
God said it himself, it is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and an angry woman. The conversation we're not having is why these men are leaving. And you will for not 1 second get me to believe that by default, black men are deadbeat dads that leave their women.
The conversation we're not having is why these men are leaving. This is what he's saying. But they've been leaving. It's not now. We saw the tape from the 70s. We saw what was going on in the 60s. It's not now. This is why I say it's 2022, isn't it? Come on now. We have to have more depth in this conversation. This stick figure conversation that we're having, where there's no shading, there's no depth of field, there's nothing that's developing the conversation beyond this very, oh yeah, it's this and that. We're not getting anywhere, really. It just keeps cycling. That part is true, John. I finally agree with John, y'all. If you had a kid out of wedlock in 20s and 30s, 40s, you didn't marry the daughter, you had a shotgun wedding. Like somebody, so that goes to tell you that there were people who were potentially be single parents. There was promiscuity. There was premarital sex. There was just a mechanism in place that forced that man to take responsibility. So that thought came to my mind the other day. It's not that men were more responsible. There were more mechanisms in place that forced them to take responsibility. But if they could have, and there was nobody there with a literal shotgun, your life, imagine to have a shotgun wedding, somebody saying to you, I'm going to hold you responsible or I'm taking your life. What mechanism within the male needs somebody to stand there with a gun to force you to take responsibility for what you created? Let that sink in. John is presenting shotgun weddings as a real thing, but somebody is holding you under duress to take responsibility for the choices you have made. And we want to propose that this is when women were more submissive and willing to do what you want. This was your grandmother's era. And somebody had to possibly hold your grandfather under shot of gunfire to take responsibility for your grandmother. Let's turn it around. Let's turn it around. Let's turn it around. Somebody had to hold possibly your grandfather hostage to take responsibility for your grandmother and the fact that he impregnated her? I'm going to let that sink in, though. I'm going to let that sink in.
Men are leaving their women because of lack of submission from their women and the proclivity for them to be verbally and emotionally abused.
So, yeah, I can't say I told you. I'm out of steam, so if somebody could type that part that he said, that's like bro number, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something like that.
Calling men boys and students will not get us to step up to the plate. You are attacking the very little bit of masculinity we still have left. All you get is Lil Nas X after this.
He said, that's interesting. Earlier, he said that her femininity does not directly affect his masculinity. But in this case, she is affecting his masculinity. How does that work? It's either she does or she doesn't. It's either she does or she doesn't. But I'm going to continue. For those who just joined us, we're just going over this video and trying to chop it up, see if we agree and disagree and different points that's being made.
Women are to be men's suggestive counsel in the decision-making process, not his argumentative opposition. You asked how a woman can feel safe in a chaotic environment. The first thing she needs to do is add peace to that environment. When women are...
How can she feel safe in a chaotic environment? So her job is to bring peace to an environment that's not peaceful. And if it's not peaceful, it's her fault. I feel a lot of transfer going on. There's a bank transaction going on here. There's a lot of wholesale transfer of responsibility to one party, which is interesting.
Our calm shit quails when women are irate. Environments become contentious. Men display poor leadership skills in the household for the same reason that teachers display poor leadership skills in the classroom. We are unable to exercise discipline outside of verbal, and as we all know, there is no authority to be had against an argumentative woman. Men, if a woman does not come...
So because you can't show her your masculine energy, you can't put hands on her, you can't, and verbally reprimanding her is not enough. That's why you can't bring order to the classroom or order to your home. For those who, we got some new people in the spot. This is a different kind of spot. Welcome to the channel. Listen, we're respectful over here, right? This is about learning and growing. This is not about attacking one another. So right now, the disrespect thing, we're going to keep it to a non-existent. You understand? So that's what it is. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put it up there. I'm going to open up the box right now for a short exchange, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Let me put the link in the box here. What's going on, Queen T? John says they had losers in the 20s. Father, help us now. John, I can't. Not today. I can't. Not today. Oh, I can't. So Chris says, so we're working to create peace in a chaotic environment, racism, white imperialism that has an adverse effect on our relationship. This is what I'm saying. It's interesting. Yeah. The expectations are not realistic based on the situation. She cannot bring peace. That's like saying just make food in a place where there's no supplies. It don't work like that, right? And the reason I can't do what I need to do is because you won't let me, and because there's no low-level threat of violence, and because you're arguing with me and you're the reason why I can't succeed. All of this sounds very, I don't know. But let's read some of the comments while we're waiting if somebody here has anything to say. Let's read some of the comments, right? Some of the comments say facts. Time to stand up, guys. We're not putting up with that blink no more, right? Some of the comments are saying, get your paper and pen and take notes. Wait. Wait, I can't see now. The thing is, a woman says, you can tell he's defensive because he didn't listen well nor come up with sound facts. I'm not going to waste my time explaining the obvious to folks with low IQ. They just can't understand. And see this part, in the beginning, she stated what she thought, and then the verbal attacks, right? Because this is a conversation between men and women. So once you start saying people have low IQs, the same thing I just said about the other guy who came in here, once you start attacking people, the defenses are going to go up and there's not going to be any resolution. Um, let's see here. Uh, he spoke a mouthful of confusion. He needs to crack his own Bible. He's talking fast so you can't think. Then she told him to have several seats. She says, first off, women aren't naturally submissive. If they were, it would be as punishment. Secondly, your peace comes from above. Stop making women your God. Stop all the fast talking. You're only fooling those who don't study their Bible. Interesting. Interesting. This redundant war between black men and women is going to end with no solution. That's my point. It still makes no sense. The conversation has turned into a blame game and no one is listening. Everyone needs to take their behind to therapy. And I second that motion. I second that motion. For those who just joined us, okay, we have some people who have joined us, so let me go ahead and change this right here. Again, please keep it respectful. That's all I'm asking. It'll be all good if we keep it clean and respectful. Hold on. Let me take this down here. Hold on, let me release my screen. D Calico, you already shown yourself kind of disrespectful, so you're not gonna come up to the mic because you showed that you wasn't able to contain yourself. So yeah, you showed yourself kind of disrespectful. But Joel, you here? Welcome to the conversation. Can I be heard? Joel? Can anybody else hear Joel? Joel, we can't hear you. You're up.
Okay.
All right, I can hear you now, brother.
You can now? Okay. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to hear all what he was saying. He's like going way too fast.
Right.
But yeah, I just wanted to say it sounds like he's coming from the angle that the wife or the woman's at fault when he's talking about bringing peace and things like that. I don't know that he's talking about in general, as far as, having a generalization of women in every relationship. He might be just focusing on if the woman's at fault, but I don't know. What's your take?
That's what I was trying to think. We were trying to figure it out. It looked like he was responding to a woman who was saying that submission is not the problem if the man is worthy of being submitted to. And then he kind of went off on a tangent. And so that's what we were kind of listening to see whether or not his counterpoints were factual or based in any reality,
Right. He probably could have worded some things different,
So let me see if I go back to a point he made and you tell me if you agree. Early on, he says that masculine and feminine, the woman being feminine has nothing to do with the man being masculine. Is that something you would agree with or no?
Yes, you should already be a man that's masculine is going to be masculine regardless. You're not, you don't become masculine just because a female is feminine and then, that's going to make me masculine. That's not the way. And I think that's where people go wrong, and somebody in the chat, I don't know who it was. I think somebody was saying that women will naturally submit. I would, for the most part, agree with that if they're quality women. A quality woman, I believe, this is just me, they will submit if the man is showing their masculine energy in the right way. I can just tell you something that I learned. I was just riding one day listening to one of them Christian pastors, one of them, you know, Southern Christian pastors one time, right?
Right.
But he had a point. Like he was saying, if you have to tell your woman to submit, you're already not in the proper masculine role already. So you already out of whack if you're having to do that. And I was like, dang, I think that was pretty deep, because I think that's pretty much true. If usually if the man is showing stability and showing that they're able to make their queens feel secure and things like that, you don't have to tell them anything. They're going to automatically want to contribute and do whatever they can to support you. I think that's pretty much true. What you think?
I think there's a level of truth to it. That more in, especially in this day and time, there's more energy being expelled trying to get the other person, get the woman to do what he wants, versus being in the space where she's going to want to fall in and support what it is that you're doing. And that's kind of the turn off for it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of somebody exuding
Right.
exuding this confidence versus going around saying, I'm confident, I'm really confident, can you see me, I'm confident, you know what I mean? Or the person just coming in and you're like, wow, I don't know what it is about this person, and it's something that's kind of unsaid but felt, you know what I mean? So I definitely agree that there is a level of, it will happen when it's in alignment to happen,
right?
But then to a certain degree, I think also that to think that every man wants to be submitted to in the same way. What are your thoughts on that? There's a thought that, you know, every man sees submission in the same way and wants the woman to interface with him in the same way. Is that something that we should consider as well, that every man may not, it may not look the same for every man?
Yeah, because of our cultural history, a lot of brothers haven't seen a healthy way to be in a leadership role. So they don't have any idea what that even is. They really think that being a leader is being a boss and, you know, just telling somebody what to do all day. They really think that's what being a leader is. They haven't seen, you know, the proper way to do it or a more effective way to do it. So yeah, I think because of that, a lot of brothers do got different ways of being the boss per se. And I think that just from observation and experience, I just think that, you know, there's only two reasons, in my opinion, why a woman won't respect a man. And that is either they're not worthy of respect, or the man didn't respect himself enough to choose a woman of respect. It's one of the two.
Oh, say that again.
Like either the man chose somebody from jump, a disrespectful woman, and there's nothing you can do about that, or the man isn't worthy to be respected. You know, I think those are the two reasons why there might be a disrespect issue coming from a woman, to me. What you think?
I think you're right. I think that there are two elements, and that the original one that you stated, that the man chose the woman, what would have attracted him initially to a disrespectful woman? Did he see her as somebody to overcome, to conquer? You know what I mean? That he was going to, you know, masculate her into submission. I just made that up, right? And he thought he was going to be able to change her, or he's just not the person to be respected. I think that's important, because oftentimes the conversation about worthiness of respect is only put on one or the other.
Yeah.
Right. It's either she is disrespectful or he's unworthy, right? But both of those things, I think, could possibly play in, or it can be both.
Yeah, it could be.
He can choose a disrespectful woman because he doesn't have that level of respect for himself to choose someone better.
Because he might be looking at superficial things, like, you know, they're looking at physical attributes and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all that kind of stuff. And they're not really even thinking about, oh, how much does this person respect me? They look good, you know, and so, you know,
That's fact.
I'm just trying to get, you know, what I can get or
But well,
whatever.
let's talk about that as well, because oftentimes the man is going for the big booty, the big breasts, the all of these things, these outer things, and then only after they go down the road they want to cry that she's not respecting me, she's not doing you know what I mean, all of
Yeah.
these things, but you chose her.
Yeah. That happens a lot, I think.
Yeah, you chose her, and now you want to make her into what she wasn't in the beginning.
Hmm. That should have really been, if that was that big an issue, that should have been the main reason you chose her in the first place. One of the main reasons.
So, what are your thoughts to? And John never comes up. So, since you're here, I'm so glad you're here. What are your thoughts concerning this? This what our grandparents used to do. The man in the video made the point that the grandmother was submissive and she never came out of her femininity, and everything was, roses and lollipops. What are your thoughts about that thought process?
Back in the day, as far as couples staying together.
As far as the portrayal that everything was all good, like the relationship between the grandmother and grandfather was all good, and it's only this generation that has missed the mark on what a good relationship is.
Well, I definitely think this generation is missing the mark, but yeah, it might be a little bit sensationalized about the past, but I do think that the older generations, I do think the black family structure was in better shape back then. I think that is true.
And
It
what
wasn't perfect, but yeah, we was. I think it was a better family structure back then for sure. Yeah, compared to now.
and do you think it was by choice or by being compelled? If you understand what I'm saying.
Being
It
forced or by just because they felt like it. Well, I think when you have clear standards in a community and clear values and a code that everybody's going by, I think that you do think about the consequences. That's a part of it.
hmm
But I also think that when you have that in place, it also does make people want to do the right thing too. Just because when you see things around you where people are doing that, you can see the positive effects of that. So you're going to want to, see yourself doing the same thing everybody else is doing. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Thank you so much for that, Joel. This is so refreshing. I haven't heard from you in so long.
Yeah. No, it's been a minute. I haven't been on YouTube in so long.
Oh wow,
I've
this
gone
is
through a
so
lot.
refreshing because I said let me just play this video. There was another video I wanted to play. Maybe I'll get a little strength for next week or something, where the guy is kind of having a similar conversation, but it's a little longer and it's more along the lines of what are you bringing to the table. I'm not sure if you've seen those conversations floating around on YouTube or on social media. What are your thoughts on the whole what the man asking the woman, what do you bring to the table? And her job or her education or her experience not being something that he finds value in. Um,
Um, I don't like those arguments. That's that Kevin Samuel stuff. I don't like that because for a man, your main okay, this is me. I feel like if you're a man, your main focus is what am I providing? What table am I providing for this relationship with this woman? Like, what am I setting up for her? What kind of stability and all that am I setting up for her so she can feel like she's safe and secure in this relationship? What am I think that should be the focus of any man, because once you do that, I think that should pretty much I mean, I think that a woman will, if you're looking for What do they? I mean, if they support you and you know they got your back and they're willing to you know contribute to what you got going on, that's pretty easy to see. Like if you have, like I feel like if a brother has his stuff together, it's pretty easy to see when somebody uh is what's the word I'm thinking of? Is something that adds to that. If a woman can add to that or not, I don't think so. I don't think they should be having all this putting pressure on women as far as, oh, you need to have this on the table and that. I mean, that's a given. That's sort of like you already know. I mean, you should already have in mind what type of woman you want to choose and
Right.
what type of areas that are attractive and not attractive. I mean, you know, that's up to you which ones you choose.
But I think, and we see Queen Zinga in the spot, long time, long time. Let me bring her up. I think as it relates to what's happening is the same kind of similar thing we see with this young man in the video. Is like you're saying, it's a mind shift. So if she had pursued her own career or pursued her own education, which her grandparents or her parents would have told her to do, now that she kind of comes with what you originally would have brought to the table, now I think on the other side, the goalpost is being moved. Like
Hmm.
you can't tell me that you're bringing. It's like, what are you bringing to the picnic? Oh, I'm bringing. You know, what I mean, the potato salad. I'm bringing the potato salad. What else are you bringing? You know what I mean? It's kind of that conversation. Well, I
Hmm.
got a paycheck. Well, I got a paycheck too, and it's kind of this back and forth of diminishing what the other person is bringing because it's kind of eating into your shine. So if the man is paying the mortgage and the house and providing, and she can do that, then he's not necessarily getting credit for doing that. And so, from what I'm hearing, I could be wrong. There's like, okay, if you're displacing me, then I'm going to displace you. If you're going to diminish my contribution, I'm going to diminish your contribution.
Hmm.
You
Right. It's
understand?
sort of like pointing
Mhm.
fingers and accusing, like what I was saying about, you know, the brothers that'll feel like they gotta, you know, say, you know, be the ruler with an iron fist and say do
Mhm.
this and do that. It's kind of the same thing. Well, you need to this and you need to. I feel like you shouldn't have to tell somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like if they're not the type of woman that's going to bring anything to the table, why are you even giving any energy toward them at all?
Question.
It's not. I mean, it's nothing to really. Why are you even talking to them at all? There's nothing to talk about. Why am I going to spend energy trying to get a woman to do what I want them to do? If they're not that, then they're not for me. You should be
Right.
only be putting energy toward women that have those attributes. So all this stuff that people doing as far as the attacking, it's like stupid to me. Like just deal with the women that are doing, you know, with the, you know, you can't change people like that.
Right. And, okay, so I have one more question because, or observation, just to see your thoughts. Based on what I've been seeing, like you said, the conversation makes no sense to me. But in a world where oftentimes her contribution was not uh, valued in the marketplace, yeah, her internal contributions was contributing towards the household, but if she wasn't necessarily compensated for it, it was seen as though it wasn't having any value. So the tangible things that he may contribute was ascribed value, but the things that the soft skills or the things that she contributed didn't have value. To a certain degree, she leaves so that she can now get this real world money as opposed to the things that oftentimes in antiquity and even present day would leave the woman vulnerable financially, socially, economically, because if she wasn't in alignment with him, then she can be easily cast off or thrown out, right? Do you think?
Okay.
I guess I'll just put it out there. I say, just let me know your thoughts on that. I've just kind of been thinking about when men are saying, well, she doesn't want to submit, then one would have to ask, why? right?
Yeah.
It's like saying you don't want to apply to my job. Why? You know what I mean? I don't want to work at whatever. Right. And it would be like, oh, maybe it's not a good place to work. Maybe the benefits, da da da. Right now, Amazon is running nothing but ads. Amazon is a great place to work. You know what I mean? And they're giving you all of the benefits of working there. Do you think to a certain degree, the conversation around submission has to do with ultimately who felt they were not getting the better end of the stick at the end of the day?
Sometimes I think some brothers are insecure, and I think that has a lot to do with it. They don't feel secure about what their role is and what they're providing on their side, and so they feel like they want the woman to bring something to the table because of what they're lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Some brothers do that. Versus, is there really a problem here from the woman? I just think, like I said before, you know, if you're with somebody that's not respecting you as a man, then did they change, or were they always like that? I mean, it goes back into what's causing it and those type of things. Is there something the man's doing that's making her feel like she can't comply?
Right.
It just depends, you know.
Right. Okay, we have some people in the chat. Listen, and I believe this Black Excellence. Let me know if you are the brother who was here before. D, listen, be one. I'm not in the mood today. Oh. Okay, be one. I will bring. I'm gonna let you come up. You already showed yourself really questionable. And if we're not respectful, we already know what it's gonna be. So you got the warning. This is also part of the problem, right? We think we can just move through, disrespect one another, and it's gonna be all good. The guy was talking about there's no, repercussions for. There's nothing other than conversation when somebody's displeased, but then we don't have any self-control when we come into spaces, and then we think that it's supposed to be all good in the hood. It don't work like that.
Right.
Queen Zinga, you in the spot? Thank you so much, brother. It was good hearing your voice.
Good day.
Hey, what's going on, sis?
I love the conversation. Thank you. Sir, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. Sir?
It's brother Joel.
Oh,
But Sankara on here, yeah.
Sir, brother Joel. How are you?
I think he might have went on mute.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh no, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, good. Hi, Sir Joel.
Oh, hey. Yeah, I mean, it's the Joelle. She knows me because we used to know each other when I was a Hebrew.
Yeah.
I don't really use the Joel anymore. It's
Okay,
I just
sorry,
use
yeah.
the Sankara, but that's cool. I mean, that's you know me
I'm
with Joel.
sorry,
That's fine too.
your name, your proper name, sir.
Yeah,
That's fine
Sankara.
too. Yeah, that's my internet name. That's fine too, though.
Sankara. Okay, is that okay if I call you Sir Sankara?
That'll be excellent. That'll be fine.
Good, Sir Sankara. I love what you had to say. And as you notice, I refer to gentlemen as sirs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know whether some men really are gentlemen, but I extend that as a form of grace and respect and hope that they will be in line with the title that I just given them. It's not
Right.
a thing, it's not a common practice that's being done these days. But I'm a unique kind of individual, so I like to go there. And when I refer to women, I usually call them Lady So-and-so. If you hear me, I'll say Lady Yamuna, right? So it's about giving respect with the hope that you'll return it back. Now, to my point, I want to say that, unfortunately, we romanticize the years prior to us, the decades prior to us, without the full information and understanding about the eras that each of these people lived in. Our forefathers lived in a generation where the family divide was the normal practice of this country. It was part of the systemic racism to keep families apart by all means necessary. And it began in slavery, with the slave masters removing family members from plantation to plantation, using the men as bucks to break them sexually sometimes, a lot of times, to procreate, to create more slaves so they would have multiple children. Now we have to apply that to our current epigenetic DNA. Our DNA goes back into history. Whatever's in our bloodline, we do repeat. So if you had a buck great grandfather, it's a possibility through your epigenetics and DNA that might be a proclivity. I'm not saying that it will be. I'm not saying that there's excessive science to support what I'm saying, but I do believe the science that we do have says that epigenetics plays a great part in our demeanor, behavior, and socialization. So, in previous times, when Black people were allowed to be married, it was a great honor for them. That's where the tradition of jumping the broom came in. It was an honor. It was a thing for us because we know and we understood that not only was it about love and family, but it represented economics. Economics. If you were married, you doubled your chances for family wealth. Family wealth, not just personal wealth. Let's think about this for a moment. Today, people do not take pride in being married because they don't understand the economics along with marriage. The concept of submission, I think for a lot of women, and I'm bouncing around, so forgive me, okay? Just follow me. When men talk about submission, they want submission from women. You have to ask yourself, what do you want this woman to submit to? What is she submitting to when she is with you? And if she is in submission, then who are you in submission to, sir? Most women don't trust, which is why we're having a hard time with submission from women. These women don't trust you. They don't trust your judgment, because if they're wise women, they will have been, and dating you, they will be watching your behavior, the way you think, if you're a critical thinker, if you're a problem solver. For example, if, say, we've had emergency situations, COVID is an emergency situation and has been an emergency situation. The decisions that you make for your family and for yourself during emergency situations tells a great deal about who you are. So if you're somebody who wound up in a ditch during this time based on your choices, a woman is not going to submit to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And as far as the genders, the years past, you have to remember we're in a different era now. The way we live in this country, and I'm talking about America, in America, everything is excessively expensive. So it would take two people to actually live very comfortably. So it would be advantageous to both parties to bring finances to the household. The household is the table. Because everybody talks about what are you bringing to the table? Define what the table is for you. The table should be your household if you're married, or you're planning to get married, or you're in a relationship. What are you building on? If a man doesn't have a vision, a code, a family code, this is something else I want to talk about. The families back in the days, if you took on that man's last name, that meant that there was a whole history of his family lineage that you would be taking on. It's like taking on the crown of England, right? The crown of England, they have a family crest. The family crest is what your belief system is. And everyone in that family falls into line with what this family's mission statement is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so the head of the household, who is the man, upholds the family values that everyone in the household adheres to. His wife agrees with him on what those family values will be if they're not established. The two of them establish that thing together. That's the ideal situation. That's how it's supposed to be. You see? So with that, I'm going to land. I have a few more things to offer, but I think I put in a lot.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. As always, you put in some excellent points that needed to be made, things to be considered. For those who just joined us, we're gonna wind down in a little bit, but um, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm not as on point this morning, but definitely, thank you for that. We have he changed his name, and I let him come up because he wanted to come up, so I'm gonna have him to come up, and just please be respectful. That's all I'm asking. All right. So the mic is open.
Well, yeah, ain't nothing but respect. I mean, I said out loud. I told you I apologize for being a little harsh in the comment section. But yeah, like I don't know who that sister is talking. And now that I've analyzed you too, Imona, like you are a divine feminine.
And
If
Zingas.
I mean, especially her, whoever Nzinga is, like that is a divine feminine all day. You know what I mean?
What is your name, sir?
Well, you can call me D Calico.
I'm sorry?
It's just call me Calico. They call me D. D Calico.
Okay, Sir D Calico.
Mhm.
Thank you. Where are you calling from?
I'm in Florida.
Okay. Thank you, Sir D Calico. I believe that we have to start instituting more family values, but we have to define what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that a man and woman, first of all, no man should have to tell me that he's an alpha male.
Exactly.
I will already know that you are.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By your behavior and the level of respect that you have for yourself and for me. But we're talking about mature men. There's a lot of immature individuals out here right now who are leading a lot of these conversations. And we have to be careful with the bitter tones that they're operating out of. They're
Mhm.
operating out of their own bitterness and disappointment.
I see.
You see? So
I mean, that goes for the men and the women. I understand what you're saying.
yeah, it's both men and women. Because I'm going to tell you, I have a room on Clubhouse, and some of the millennials, and I have to say this, a lot of them are extremely disrespectful,
Hmm.
both male and female.
But don't the saying go back to like back in the days, like who raised these these people?
Well,
That's
yeah.
what it boils down to. It boils down to that. So it's gonna
Yeah.
that divine feminine and divine masculine obviously didn't show up in these people's lives. Is what
Well,
I'm saying.
first of all, these terms that you're using, divine masculine, divine feminine, we have to
Mhm.
remember that's new terminology. That wasn't
Not really. Not really. I mean, that's like saying the word divine is new. That's like saying the word feminine is new.
the word divine is not new, but
Yeah.
the
So
way
that's what we gotta apply to the femininity. We gotta apply the divinity to that, or it's no good. Same
right.
thing going with the male. Like if I bring my volatile energy, I don't think that's useful for you all, or for this situation. I would have to be in my divine self, you know, at all times, or I don't think we're gonna mesh well.
But what I'm saying, I think you missed the point in what I'm trying to say is that the way that we're using the terminology is new. There's, there was a time that nobody said that. It was just known that we're operating in these principles. But now, because we live in a generation that labels everything, we're giving our male and female principles titles. You see? Does that make sense?
I mean, it's like saying lower self and higher self. Like, should we not use those terms, lower self and higher self, when it's pretty accurate.
Well, yeah, it's accurate, but what I'm saying is it's modern terminology.
Yeah, I mean that don't make it obsolete. That don't discredit it.
No, I'm not saying that it discredits it. I'm just
Well,
saying
I think we need to apply it.
modern. Yeah, it's modern, and that's fine. So now that we're in a modern time, we have to marry modern with tradition in order for us to move forward in a more positive way. Because remember what I said earlier about slavery, how African Americans, Africans, Caribbeans were treated during slavery. Family values were ripped from us.
And we continue to do so.
But we have to go
So,
back.
and thank you for that. Sorry, I just wanted to hear because see, he was speaking in the not sure you was here, Queen Zinga, but he was speaking in the comment section, and he wanted to come on. So I wanted to kind of hear if he wanted to clarify in any way some of the things you were trying to say in the comment section. You could do that at this time.
I mean, I just don't. I mean, basically, like I said, that volatile energy, like it's not very useful. So I don't think. I think it's even worse coming from a woman because y'all supposed to be the divinities on earth. I mean, so to speak. Like men are supposed to be like we're supposed to be dumber than women and everything, but it's like times have brought the woman down. It's like if they attack the woman and bring her down, they bring us all down. You know what I mean? Like there's no structure in the household. Like the kids need a divine feminine more than the man does. The man, if he's gonna be with her, he needs that from her. But nobody needs it more than the children. Like no son can really handle his mom screaming at him and all of that. So when we have a broken household, the women will have to wear the pants in those circumstances, and it just makes it does make him be that beta male and all that. So it is dependent. Masculinity is dependent upon femininity, because we're not just talking about your girlfriend. We're talking about your mother too, your grandmother. We're talking about all of the women that help raise you or create, bring you up to this point, this stage in life. If they, if they treated you, like a little wimp, you will grow up to be a wimp, or you'll grow up to be some coward out here in the streets that, assumes that he's gangster, but he's really a wimp because of his upbringing. He never became a man.
I
So
want to
it's
thank
gonna always, masculinity does depend on femininity. Just
I
like when I
want to
see women that want to be men, I'm like, nobody can tell me that she had a man telling her how much he loved her every day. There's no way she had a dad that told her and hugged her and told her every day how beautiful she is, how much he loves her, and all of it, et cetera, et cetera. There is no way. But we living in a broken homes. Like my neighborhood personally, I know everybody. Me and my cousin had this conversation recently. And out of everybody in my whole neighborhood, it was only 2 families that had their mother and their father. Only 2 families. Do you know what kind of neighborhood that is? Do we not understand that's the true epidemic? We're gonna need the father, and he needs to be in his right mind, and we need a mother in the house, and she needs to be in her right mind. That's just my take on it.
I want to thank you for that, because that was one of the first points that was made in that video, and you brought in the scope that this is not just talking about man and woman, that masculinity depends on
Everybody
femininity.
still there?
Can you still hear me? Can I still be heard?
Is that my mic?
Yeah, it might be your mic, because we can still hear you. But the point that he was making was to the first point that was in the video, that this is beyond just the male and the female, the husband and the wife. There are different places that we are experiencing that. And I would have to agree that both parties, the male and the female, the mother and the father, need to be in their right minds in order to give each one of their children what it is that they need. Not only just the male child and the female child. My children are talking, ironing and talking aloud. So if I have to stop for a minute, not only just the male child and the female child, but each soul individually. There's some people that think that all of the boys just need this one formula, and all of the girls just need this one formula. Now realizing in the fact that they're males and females, they're also individuals. So this son may be more of X, Y, and Z versus this son, an introvert and more quiet. They may need something different. You know what I mean? An adventurous daughter versus one that they may need something different. And sometimes we get so caught up in life that we don't realize that beyond male and female, these are souls that need individual attention. They're getting so. If anybody else has anything else to say, feel
I,
free to do so. I'm gonna step away for 2 seconds. Hold on 1 second.
okay, I'd like to chime in on that. And I think that, we've missed the mark, but we can always, we can redo this, family. We can actually redo this. We can erase some of the mishandling of each other. We can erase that. We can backtrack and recalibrate the course that we're on, is what I'm trying to say. But we have to be very conscious about it. Men and women should not be in competition with each other in the same household. If you have the same goals, this is what you agree on, and this is what family values are supposed to be about. We come under the umbrella of, let's say, I'm going to use the example, the Henry family. Say your last name is Henry, right? Under the umbrella of the Henry family, we have a divine system set up for everyone that lives in this household with the name with the last name Henry. Everyone who goes out into the world with the last name Henry should behave in this manner. Otherwise, you are disgrace to the name Henry, to the name of the family principles and goals. Does that make sense? That we're not in competition with each other. The husband should not feel a need to be right, nor should the woman. We should come into agreement. We've got to learn how to agree with each other. And that means, that means that we have a lot of communication. A lot of dialogue has to happen between us so that we can be on the same page in agreement with each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Of course. Yeah.
that's
That mean we got to have the same mindset.
Exactly.
and I would just want to say this is an excellent conversation. I didn't know we was gonna go for an hour and 40. These little ones is over here like hello, but no, definitely. I think the conversation needs to continue. Hopefully, we'll be able to touch back in and continue because there's so many things that were brought up in the comment section as well as on stage as well. So, sorry. Hopefully we can come back at another time and continue the discussion. But I do agree that there's standards that need to be set, but we also need to be realistic that things and times have changed for many people for many reasons, some for the better and some for the worse. And to try to wholesalely go back to how things used to be is not necessarily the answer, I don't think, because life continues to evolve. So
But sister,
go ahead.
but sister, imagine the Jews of the Holocaust not wanting to go back to before the Holocaust. Why wouldn't they want to go back to life before the Holocaust?
Well, if I can remember correctly, in a lot of places before the Holocaust, they were already being ostracized. They were already being singled out as not part of the people who were around about them. So even before the
These people
Holocaust,
ran the world back then too.
I'm sorry.
They ran the world back then too. Like Hitler had a lot of politicians and people like that in those concentration camps. So they were not, schmucks like
No,
nobody. These people were big people. Just like right now, they run the world. The same people.
yeah, but no. My point being is that as we as a people evolve, and we begin to understand and we begin to cultivate the good parts and fix the parts that were not as advantageous, that is what helps us to grow and become stronger as people and as units. But if we continue only to look back, it's like saying, oh yeah, the bread was better in antiquity, but the bread was also filled with impurities. You know what I'm saying? And as you grew and as you learned how to preserve bread and to preserve foods better, then your health was, you wouldn't say, oh, I want to go back to eating food when I was unsure what was in it. When, you know what I mean, when you could get botulism and everything else. My point being, as we learn, we grow and we adopt the things that are beneficial, and then we weed out the things that are no longer beneficial. So that's kind of my point as
I think
relates
it's
to.
wise for us to know what those things were first before
Yeah.
we
Right,
discount.
Before we get rid of them. Yeah, before we get rid of them, because it
and
seems like
that's a whole
divine feminine is
Mhm.
gotten rid of.
I mean, there's no space in order. And someone said it earlier. I think Sarai said we should define it, and definitely we can come back at another time and have these conversations. But there are certain things that are retroactively being inserted into history that wasn't the reality, right? And
Hmm.
we do that for many reasons. Some of it is ignorance, some of it is arrogance, some of it is, I don't know, we can assumption, whatever it is. We go and say what our foreparents were experiencing and what they would have rather done and all of these other things, and they're not here to speak for themselves, which makes it difficult. But if we approach the conversation in honesty, then we can begin to move through um, some of the things, the issues that we're experiencing right now.
I think that we have to be realistic about what the future is going to look like in terms of society, because what's happening right now is that there, the governments that we all live under is changing, and they're creating new rules for people to live under, and so these rules are now creating a great form of duress in many families. That's why, the divorce rate during COVID was at the highest that it's ever been, because people actually were at home and they were not in the
Mm-hmm.
workspace.
They weren't escaping.
Yeah,
They weren't escaping from reality.
exactly. Like everybody was going out to work, and this was their life. But you really didn't know who your own family members were.
And I could speak personally to this. I usually don't. Some of these hypothetical conversations I really don't get down with, because a lot of the stuff I actually live. And when COVID hit, I had no problem, because I was already doing everything that people oftentimes hypothetically say. You should homeschool your children, you should be present, you should do all of that. I already do that. I do it every day since the day they were born. So therefore, COVID didn't affect me in the way that it affected other people who, for one reason or the other, aren't present with their family members. You know what I'm saying? And so I know the difference between saying what we should do and the reality of doing what we say we should do. And it's not for the faint at heart. And there's a reason why people have said to me they would rather go to work all day long than stay with their children.
Than being around their woman. Yep.
I'm
and I don't blame you.
Yeah, people have, but if we say generational wealth, if we say invest in people, it means you have to be present. And you have to be willing to invest, not just monetarily things. You have to be willing to invest in that person energetically, emotionally, mentally. That's not weak. That's not for the faint. So when we talk about rebuilding family and rebuilding structure and rebuilding relationships, it's not a simple task. And some of us would rather talk about it than actually put the energy and effort into doing it. And it's no shot or this, but when it comes to something like COVID, it really shows you what's really needed. And as Nzinga was saying, a lot of abuse comes in, because there's no escape for the child, there's no escape for the woman, or even escape for the man. They have to be present with these people when push comes to shove, that really don't like them, that really are indifferent, that really are resentful, that really don't even want them in their presence. This is why someone talked about therapy. This is facts. So when people are over on the internet playing with theories, understand that there's somebody somewhere trying to implement them, and it may cost them their life. It's not a game where we come out here talking about what people should do and what they shouldn't do, because somebody's gonna go try it.
Right. And, I think there's a lot of what a lot of people are not applying is critical thinking and logic. Critical thinking is ask the questions. You ask the questions. What's going on in this family? What are we doing? Are you okay today? What's happening? What do I need to do for you? What needs to happen here? When I'm sitting down with my husband or my wife, or whatever your dynamic is in your life, you're sitting with your partner and you say, you know what? Something's not working here. This is where communication is very, very important. A lot of people are missing the communication factor, and the fact that things have changed. So now what happens with change in today's current society? What is our future going to look like? What do families look like? What does the African American, African Caribbean, African family look like in the year
2022?
The year 2025. What will that look like?
It's already messed up. They
All
already
right,
got different.
Yeah, but we know that. But we've got it. What is, let's not talk about the problem. Let's find a solution here.
all right. So guess what, y'all? I don't mean we're gonna come back. 'Cause what it look like is Muna getting hungry.
Yeah, that's a whole another hour right there. We
Exactly.
definitely step away.
We come back and talk about what it looks
To
like
be continued.
after I get something to eat.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll be looking forward to it, sister. I'm gonna let you get with it, and
All
I
right,
apologize for earlier once again.
all
'Cause
right. Thank you for
I actually
coming
like
through.
you. I like you.
There you go. You see what the experience is this. We come with our predetermined thoughts. And if we can get past things, right, then we could continue to build. Because if the moment we don't agree as people, and then that's it, we can't continue to build, right? And so this is one of the things we have to model in reality. Yeah, we had a rocky beginning, but you know what? We're able to, hey, this is the boundary, this is my expectation, this is where you was coming from, blah, blah, blah. And then we can have a decent discussion. So thank you for coming through and being respectful. Thank everybody for tuning in. I pray
No
everybody
problem.
have a blessed day. I'm about to go finish resting.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mona. It's
All
lovely
right,
to talk.
Sankara, thank you for coming through. Long time no
Thank
see.
you, Sir Sankara. It was lovely to
Thank
talk.
you, Zingo, right?
Yes, sir.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll be around. So I'll see
All
y'all
right.
soon, Muna.
All right, everybody have a blessed day.
You too.
Good day.
Peace.